Gruesome Magazine.
Hello once again. I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies. Each week, my co-hosts Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, Dave Dreher, Christopher G. Mohr, and I will take a look at very spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. Every once in a while, we get to review a film early, and that's what we're doing with this film tonight. We are doing 73 Minutes, which is currently out on the festival circuit. And
the title is 73 minutes. We're not doing a whole.
We're not going to do 73 minutes. No.
Okay, just making sure if people thought.
Yes, yeah. The title is 73
You're
minutes.
saying the time, the length of this this episode.
Yes, we are doing the film 73 Minutes from Lou Simon. So this should be a lot of fun. Let's get into the Grue-Crew. Starting off with Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How's everybody else?
You are. Doing great. I love that picture behind you there, by the way.
Yeah, that's a poster from the Invincible Czars Nosferatu tour.
Yeah, it's a great picture. I love long pictures like that. All right. I don't know why I'm doing that, but hey, there it is. All right. Also joining us is the one and only award-winning filmmaker, Christopher G. Mohr. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm glad I'm not in a car right now, but other than that, I'm doing well.
And how many cell phones do you have? What? Whoa!
I don't know.
All right.
You tell me. Or more like, how many burner phones do I have?
Oh, yes. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to give you our first impressions on the movie. That will be spoiler-free. Then we'll get into discussion. And because this movie isn't really out there yet, we're going to kind of reel in our spoilers, so it may shorten our review just a bit, but that's why. And then we'll dive into our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. And we hope that you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. And if you do, please hit the like, subscribe, and share with a friend buttons, especially subscribe, because if you do, it'll help us find more horror fans just like you. Thank you.
Yeah, just imagine Doc in a cage, like one of those cutesy dogs. It's like an old puppy dog eyes, So we'll let Doc out of the cage if you just like and subscribe.
No, we
All right.
If we get him in a cage.
And because
if we get him in a cage, we're leaving him there.
All right. Well, unfortunately, it's been a really crazy week for me, so I wasn't able to make the card for this. But hey, so I'm just going to read it. So here we go. 73 Minutes, filmed entirely during the lockdown in 2020. 73 Minutes is the story of a lawyer who gets a call threatening her daughter's life if she doesn't deliver a file to the caller, and has 73 minutes to figure out how to save her family. Written and directed by Lou Simon. And the cast includes, but is not limited to, Aniela, I can't read. Aniela McGuinness, Christopher Millan, Mike Stanley, Izzy Herbert, Sheril, Rodgers, Megan Rawson, and others. At this point, like I said, it's on the festival circuit, so check it out if you hit the film festivals. Let's dive into our first impressions. And we're going to do it kind of backwards because I'm going to go first.
Whoa.
What? All right. So I
didn't mean it, Doc. I really wouldn't leave you in the cage.
You would. No, you did. You don't have to panel. All right. So I found this movie, it's 73 minutes and it is pretty close to that time. I lost the thing here. Where is it? What is the actual time?
It's an hour and 20, I think. 80.
80 minutes. Well, you got to get credits in there, but they do give her, well, spoilers. They give her a little extra time. I found it pretty tight. It's basically kind of a variation on, what is it when you're in one place, one set? Christopher, what's that called?
Yeah, there's a term for it, but
and you forgot. It's totally out of your brain too.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it's mostly in her car. We start with her getting in the car, and that's most of it. And she's talking to other people. It's kind of found footagey the way they do it. Insert those in with the phones and stuff. And after a rough start, I will admit that the first couple minutes are a little like, oh. But then it kicks in, and when you really get into the mystery of it or the investigation of it or whatever however you want to describe what, her trying to figure out what's going on with the limited resources and people to assist her. I was really into it. It kind of surprised me how tight it was and how it drew me into the film. It has some rough bits. There's some acting problems, but I don't know if it matters that much because it's not really supposed to be like, a Shakespeare film. It's authentic in that way, I suppose. But our lead actress does a great job, and there's parts where she really nails it. And I do also like the her boyfriend as well. What was the character's name?
Christopher Millan.
Keith, yes. And and for two characters that really didn't share any screen time, I thought they had chemistry, which I thought was quite the accomplishment. So I ended up really enjoying this for what it is. I mean, it is a unique film in that respect. And I've really had a good time. So let's find out what the rest think. Jeff Mohr, what was your first impression?
I think I'm kind of with you. It's an interesting idea. We've seen a lot of other movies like this, set during the pandemic and the isolation and the quarantining and that stuff. So I think there's no time where any actors are face to face. There's one where a cop comes up outside the car, but otherwise it's not done in an intrusive way. You don't feel like it's a gimmick. I didn't think. I mean, the story's interesting, and it had some tension going for me. And it's a variation on another theme, that we've seen different versions of. But this was enough different to keep my attention. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, I think you sort of said this, maybe a little rough around the edges in a couple places, but not enough for me to put it down or anything. It did what I wanted a movie like this to do, which is create that tension and have me kind of holding my breath some of the time to see what's going to happen.
Yeah. In context, I think everything was fine. All right, Christopher G. Mohr, sir, what was your first impression of 73 Minutes?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell the limitations of it, but it is more of an experiment than anything else. Shooting it during lockdown, and I mean and I think the limitations kind of work for it for most of it. I mean, I think towards the end it kind of falls apart when it involves other areas without giving too much away. But and I think the, of course, technology kind of helps it. Otherwise, it's just a person talking on the phone while they're driving. And I think the incorporation of other technology elements like an iPad and other things. So I think she found kind of a workaround for that kind of stuff. But yeah, and I was kind of worried. I think the beginning's a little bit rough. And I think once we get into the emotion, I think luckily the main actress, I think she does a good job, especially when she has to go deep into emotion, when her family is possibly involved in this whole scenario. But yeah, I think it works pretty well. I mean, it's very simplistic, and if you're looking for a lot of gore or horror, this film does not have that. It's more thriller more than anything else.
Yep.
But it feels like those. I mean, but we've seen these type of movies before, but a lot of them are more big budget. But where it's like a guy trapped in a phone booth, or or a guy trapped in a coffin, or So we have quite sort of similar scenarios where they're trapped within one specific area or whatever. With her, although there are times where she does get out of the car, I guess, at one point.
Runs off to the gas station.
Yeah. So I think there's some moments in it, and I think as someone that knows Lou, she has two slight cameos. One of them,
Oh, that was
her
funny.
movie is on the radio. They talk about this movie on the radio, and then there's another part where you see a picture, and I was like, "That's Lou."
Yeah, I know. I was like,
that's her little M Night cameo. But yeah, overall, I think this is a, you know, it being an experiment. I give them props for having to shoot a movie during lockdown because there's so many limitations and you can't really have a lot of people. But I think it kind of works. And just, you know, granted, there are also a lot of parts where it's just this dialogue is exposition, and let me explain all these different things. And I think the exposition kind of weighs it down sometimes, but you know, but again, I think it's one of those moments where it gets a little bit emotional that actually, you know, that made it a little bit more than what it is. But yeah, it is very simplistic. And I think, you know, it might wear on some people. They might get kind of bored with it because there's not a lot of things happen other than just through conversations and FaceTimes and different things. But I think the way it came together, I think, you know, kind of works. It's just, you know, it is a little bit, like you guys said, it is a little bit rough around the edges, and I don't necessarily like the way it kind of ends before the little stinger thing at the end. But otherwise, otherwise I enjoyed it for what it was and the experiment that it is.
Yeah, because you saw it at a film festival, right?
I actually I reviewed it. It was like we got movies in for Renegade, and that was one of the ones I came across.
Oh, okay.
And looked and watched it. So and actually, I think her film was accepted as like an honorable mention or something. But she was at the film festival, and I talked to her about it. So yeah. Nice. But yeah, I got to watch it through that, and that was kind of cool. It's like, oh, it's a Lou Simon film. So
just is it a chamber film? Is that what they're called?
That's one term for it, but that's not the term I was. Yeah,
okay.
That's the official term from, you know, if you look it up. But there's another
mystery.
Yeah, something, I forget what it is, and totally slipped in my mind. So I'm not going to delay. But okay. So there's a couple of things I want to address about what you said, and one thing is the ending. The ending is a little what's the right term for it? It's just kind of lets you down a little bit. It's not quite the pow that you want, because building up to it with the emotion of getting her family out of the house was really tense and tight, and the ending just doesn't live up to that. And that's, if I was going to pick out flaws, and we're in spoilers now, that's what I do. The other thing is the voice, and this is just because, you know, coming out of, you know, like Scream 6 recently and other we do so many films. I think the voice wasn't menacing enough. It was almost too normal, right? It just didn't feel, the voice of the guy that's, you know, threatening her just didn't have that. I don't know. It needed some audio tuning, something. Not audio tune. That's not what I meant to say. But it needs some augmentation to it, right? Needs just some bass or something added to it, some, you know, gravitas. Because, and they do this a couple times, like when they're trying to break into the computer, you know, you get all tap, 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 you try something, tap, 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 and that's realistic, and that's what would happen, but it doesn't necessarily make for great cinema. But these are minor flaws, I think, even saying them, because, you know, the conversations between the guy and her really get tense toward the end. And, you know, they do find some really cool stuff on the computer and stuff that, you know, it leads to good stuff, but I don't know. So those are some things I would point out, but at the same time, on the opposite side, I think Aniela, I don't know how you pronounce her name, Aniela, help. McGuinness, I thought she was fantastic. You really got some emotion in there. Yeah,
she was the standout, you know. And I mean, well, I think the villain character is more snarky than scary. And I don't know, something about the delivery didn't work for me in regards to that. So that was the main issue. If your main villain isn't gonna. But yeah, I thought the main actress, I thought she did a really great job, and especially having to. And I think, again, not only is it very hard logistically because you're very limited what you can do, but as an actor, a lot of those things you have to act on your own. You're not acting against someone, And so for her to have to kind of pull that emotion out, especially towards the end when she's caring about her family and stuff, and she's having to listen to those people going, you know, to her house and stuff, she really brought that. I think with her being the foundation of this whole film, if she didn't work, then this whole, you know, experiment wouldn't work either. So I think Lou picked a good actress to sort of be able to pull off that foundation for everything that happens.
I liked too that there was some family conflict between the two characters, Keith and Monica.
Oh,
you know, they both had their own problems, and they were he was having to sacrifice some of his preferences, I guess, or what he thought he needed to do in order to help her. So I thought that played in nicely. And as far as the caller, I felt like at first I was thinking, yeah, he seemed a little bit too normal, but then I was thinking, you know, as we learn who the character is and they learn who it is, then it sort of made sense to me. Although, anyway, I don't know. Maybe she just thought disguising it with electronic voice was a little too tropey.
Well, I don't know if you need to do something like that far, but it just needed, I mean, it was natural, right? It was a naturalism kind of approach, and I think it needed a little bit more cinematic touch to it. I mean, it's really just a subtle thing.
Yeah, and I think also I feel like the limitations of the filming and stuff, I think that's what kind of sucked all the air of the ending of it, because you know there really should have been a bigger ending to it, but because of the limitations they couldn't pull it off.
Uniting with the
that would have been nice to uniting between family and I'm sorry the whole Silence of the Lambs Clarice Hannibal.
No, that
was not needed. It really was not needed. I mean,
it's fine,
but it didn't work for me. You know me, I love Hannibal stuff, but that didn't work for me at all. I just felt very because I think that's my main issue is just the ending, and then the stinger thing at the end. It didn't work for me.
It was a little too on the nose, right? It could have been a subtle way of doing it.
Well, yeah, and it's like, then it just, for me as a filmmaker, I'm like, what can we do that we can just have one person not have to do anything? And that's kind of, I mean, that was the whole experiment. But I think at some point, you know, the extreme limitations of that can sometimes not help, you know, the entertainment value of your product.
Yeah. There is a moment toward the end that I really enjoyed. I thought they did, and I was a little worried about it at first. And that's when the Keith character is at the park trying to find, we don't see it, right? It's all audio.
Yeah.
And he's at the park trying to find the daughter and the mother who have escaped the house, and it's all on the phone audio. And the cops show up. And at first I was groaning a little bit because really that's where we're going, but the way they turned that on, you know, twisted a little bit, I really enjoyed. I thought that sequence really paid off really well with the police and getting on the phone and talking to him. I was always in the back of my head, I was still suspicious, like, are they in on it? Is he a cop and they don't know it? I was like, I was really like grinding my gears on it, but I really enjoyed that.
Well, in some ways they've turned this into like old timey radio. You know,
in a way,
because you're having to, because of the limitations of not being able to have people in the same scene together, you sort of have to figure out these ways to do that, and whether that be through when the guy shows up at the house with the mother and or the police, and so you got to create these scenarios, and you got to do a really great job of making that audio sound believable. Otherwise, it's gonna feel kind of forced, you know.
It's known as the golden age of radio.
The golden age of radio.
or I guess
I love it when you say old timey.
I know. When I said that on purpose, just so that Jeff was like, "How dare you, Chris?" Well, nowadays it'll be podcast stories, you know. So
you're right, yeah,
because now podcasts are sort of gotten into the what used to be on like radio serials and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was fun stuff. All right. Well, I think if we talk about this anymore, we're going to give way too much away. I feel like we have. But I think when you watch it, you'll enjoy this experience. But let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give a score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. We'll go in the same order. We'll shake this up. I'll go first, and that's not me. Hi, I want to say that I would give this. I'm going to give it a 3.5. And I would say most of that is Miss McGuinness. I think she really. I mean, after the first 10 minutes, really got me. And the more it got tense, and the more she was, she was bringing the urgency to the entire situation. I don't know if I ever really felt the 73-minute part of it, but I felt her urgency for getting to the bottom of this and saving her family, and that's the important part of it, really. So I really enjoyed her performance, and that's why I would give that score for. My favorite scene is going to be when Keith's wife calls up. Just because I had such a fun time with it, and she there's a plot with that, and I'm not going to get into it, but the whole conversation and what it leads to is I really had a good time with that. And it was like, you're in the middle of all this, and how awkward is that, right? And I thought the dialogue actually worked for all that. The conversation and then how she ends it, was perfect. It was good writing, good dialogue. Jeff, what about you, sir?
Yeah, I'm giving this a 3, and I would, in terms of a favorite scene, I liked, just in general, something I haven't mentioned yet, but a lot of times in movies like this, you're thinking, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that?
Yes.
But everything that I thought of was answered in the story.
Oh, nice. I like that.
She tried it and it didn't work or whatever. And so I thought we already mentioned it, so I'm not giving something away, but when she runs and gets the phone, that added a whole nother dimension.
Yes.
And there's a plausible explanation for how she gets away with that. So.
Yep. And yeah, even with the villain, who was kind of in control of things, air quotes. All right, Christopher G. Mohr, sir, what about you?
I think this is to try to pull off a feature-length film and have the limitations. So I give Lou props on that. I'll give it, I'll give it a 3 as well. I think it's got some good stuff in it. And despite, especially as a filmmaker, seeing the limitations of that, I wouldn't attempt this. We'll let Lou attempt this. And so yeah, I think it works for what it's trying to shoot for. At the same time, there are parts that kind of like you can feel the limitations of what they're trying to do, and that's just the danger sometimes of having to work within those limitations. As for favorite scene, I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, Doc. I think when the guy goes to the park and you hear the audio of that, I think when you can pull drama out of just listening to what's happening on the phone, I think good. you've done a good job of it, because you've gotten the actor sort of interacting in whatever way to sort of pull that off, and you feel the tension of that moment. Because like you, Doc, I was thinking, I'm not sure if these people are real cops or you don't know. And I think the mystery of that, I think it being on audio adds an extra layer of mystery, because you don't know what these people even look like. So yeah, I think that's probably the part that my favorite part of the film.
Yeah, but you know what's going on. You know that it's 3 cop cars have showed up. And it really works out well, and it ends really well too. Take the cops off. Take the cops off. I like it. It was good. I could have chosen that as my favorite scene as well. All right, well there you go. That's our review for 73 minutes, which we did in 23. Yay! All right. Check it out when it comes to a film festival to you, and as soon as we know its release schedule, we'll share it with you. Christopher, Jeff, thank you for joining me. It's a lot of fun.
No problem.
Always.
All right, let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.